Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Midlife Revolution. I'm your host, Megan Connor, and I expect this to be my fourth and final installment on the Lauren Matthias stalking case for October 27th. I didn't get a chance in my live stream to read the statement of the respondent, and I also had a little over 60 comments and questions starred in my chat that I wanted to address, and I'm going to attempt to do that here. So I'm going to start by reading the statement of the respondent in this case, who's Christina, and this is her responding to the allegations of Lauren. It says, I, Christina, do hereby state and declare as follows. I'm over the age of 18 and I'm competent to testify in this matter. I have personal knowledge of the facts stated herein. I make this declaration in conjunction with the petition for civil stalking injunction filed by Lauren. Specifically, but without limitation, this declaration addresses the allegations contained in the Declaration of Grayson and the documents referenced therein, and the Declaration of Lauren and the second Declaration of Lauren and the documents referenced therein. I met Lauren in April 2024. Lauren holds herself out as an ex-reporter, journalist, and podcaster dealing primarily with true crime cases. Lauren is a public figure. She and her husband run a YouTube channel, Hidden True Crime, that has approximately 317,000 subscribers. Her Instagram account has over 20,000 followers, and her TikTok account has over 56,000 followers. For several months, I communicated regularly with Lauren, and we became friends. Throughout that time period, I noticed certain red flags that suggested that Lauren's credentials and public image were inaccurate. I call into question the credentials part of it because she was, in fact, a former journalist. And so you can dispute her public image, but the credentials part, I don't understand. For example, Lauren would describe to me interpersonal problems with her friends and in-laws based on accusations of theft and fraud. That's vague, and if she had something specific to say there, I think she probably would have said it. I also learned information that caused me to question Lauren's ethics in obtaining and handling confidential information. During this time period, multiple people expressed concern about Lauren's conduct. At approximately the same time I became friends with Lauren, I also became friends with Lindsay and Lori, who had been friends with Lauren for a year prior. I also became friends with other women who were acquaintances of Lauren's, including Janice. I communicated with, traveled with, and was invited to events with Lauren from April 2024 through the winter of 2024. Lauren also invited me to her house while I was on a work trip in Las Vegas, Nevada. Lauren also invited me and my family to her home to swim in her pool when we were driving from Utah to California. My friendship with Lauren ends. Lauren asked me to perform some graphic design work for her and or her husband's business, which I did at a significant discount given our friendship. Odd to mention the discount. I'm not sure why. By January 2025, my friendship with Lauren was beginning to wane, and we communicated less frequently. I sent Lauren a final invoice in March 2025 for the graphic design work. A copy of the invoice and correspondence related to my rate is expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D1. By that point, I was no longer communicating on a regular basis with Lauren or spending time with her as a friend. So I'm going to say March of 2025 as the end of their friendship hanging out. That's going to be important later. On April 9th, 2025, I saw Lauren at the courthouse in Maricopa County, Arizona, after Lauren called out to me to get my attention. Lauren ran towards me, calling my name, and with her arms out, signaling that she wanted a hug. While hugging Lauren, I stated that I had read some of the negative statements Lauren had made about me and others, and that I had seen evidence of her efforts to harm others in their business. Lauren insisted that we talk right then and there, even though I was hesitant because Lauren appeared to be in an elevated, quote, fight, flight, freeze state. So here, Christina is not a diagnostician. How does she know that Lauren is in a fight, flight, or freeze state? 23, Lauren stated we needed to talk immediately because she wanted to be alone and her assistant Grayson never leaves her side, quote, never leaves her side. During that conversation, Lauren acknowledged that some of the negative statements that I had seen were true and then attempted to justify them. Because Lauren does not always accurately represent verbal conversations, I recorded the conversation. However, if I remember correctly from Lauren's video, the recording starts when they walk up to each other, not later on. I could be wrong about that, but I'm fairly certain that Christine was already recording when they walked up to each other. After our friendship ended, Lauren initiated repeated contact with me to make accusations I knew to be false and to demand I stop speaking about her, even with mutual acquaintances. After Lauren's initial contact, I exchanged several texts with her on April 21st through 22nd, 2025 regarding her accusations and demands. The texts are expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D2. Lauren blocked and unblocked me multiple times so that she could state her demands and accusations without allowing me any response. Lauren's last text to me was on April 22nd, 2025. It again made false accusations about my conduct and demanded that I refrain from speaking publicly about her. I have not initiated contact with Lauren since March 12th, 2025, when I contacted her for a referral for my neighbor. I have not communicated with Lauren directly or indirectly since April 21st, 2025. However, Lauren unblocked me in August 2025 to remove things from one of our conversations, and I received an alert that she had done so. Now, correct me if I'm wrong here on this again, but people can edit text messages, but I'm not aware of any program that gives you an alert when someone edits a text message or deletes a text message from the thread. So I'm not sure that this is accurate. Also on June 5th, 2025, I traveled to Arizona to attend a portion of the Lori Daybell trial. I was in Arizona for only 24 hours. While seated between, I think this is Lori and another friend in the waiting area, I saw Lauren wave at me in an attempt to engage. I ignored her and did not respond. This was another example of Lauren initiating contact with me, not the other way around. 35. I think this is Grayson tried to call me twice on June 10th, 2025, but I did not answer or return her call. An image depicting the missed calls is expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D3. Grayson also sent me a lengthy text message saying that she felt sad that I had my feelings hurt and wanted to have a private conversation. I did not respond. A copy of these texts is expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D4. Lauren's conduct towards others. Since April 2025, I've learned of multiple instances where Lauren has behaved strangely and obsessively toward my friends who are also former friends and acquaintances of Lauren. On April 11th, 2025, Lauren sent Lindsay a cease and desist letter containing numerous demands aimed at curbing Lindsay's speech. The cease and desist letter is expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D5. Notwithstanding the cease and desist letter, Lauren has taken purposeful steps to contact and communicate with Lindsay. Lindsay describes these in detail in her declaration submitted concurrently herewith. I will also read the cease and desist letter because giving someone a cease and desist about a specific topic doesn't prohibit you from communicating with them. Then there's something about a similar letter to another mutual acquaintance here. 40. The declaration describes 2 alleged instances in Boise involving, I think this is Janice and Lori and Lindsay and others. I was in Europe when these occurred, and I learned about them only later. Lori, Lindsay, and Janice recount what occurred in their declarations submitted concurrently herewith. I've since received the Boise Police Department report along with copies of the videos Lauren submitted to the Boise Police. Some of the videos were of my posts online, even though I was not in Boise when the alleged incidents occurred. In the report, the officer stated that Lauren provided me with videos of 2 different incidents, including the incident at Bitter Creek Ale House. I did not see any intimidating or threatening behavior in the videos. That's a quote from the police report. At no point did I ask, encourage, or facilitate any of my friends or anyone else to contact Lauren. Indeed, in a majority of instances, Lauren herself provoked the encounter with me in and before April until recently at CrimeCon and my friends. Lauren and Grayson have engaged in a pattern of entering spaces where I already am. Next section is Lauren's effort to prevent public discourse. As evident from the Lauren declarations and Grayson declaration, Lauren's main issue is with public statements that I have allegedly made about Lauren. Lauren mischaracterizes many of these statements or describes them vaguely to misconstrue them or present them out of context. For example, Lauren alleges that I mocked a police officer when in fact I merely pointed out inaccuracies in what the officer told me, as is my right. A recording of my post is expected to be offered to my defense as Exhibit D6. Now, if you go to the TikTok that Christina is referencing here, it's very clear that she's using music and other cues in the video that are essentially mocking what the police officer was telling her. Christina says she's merely pointing out inaccuracies. Well, she's doing that in a mocking way, in my opinion, allegedly. 48, Lauren omits any discussion of the context of that video, which was that I was contacted by the Henderson, Nevada Police Department after Lauren contacted police in June 2025 to report that I and others were sharing, quote, private communications we had with Lauren. I expect to offer in my defense a copy of the Henderson police report as Exhibit D7, in which the officer states that he or she, quote, did not find extortion, quote, no text messages were intercepted, and Lauren's private messages were not hacked. The Lauren declaration describes my public comments as, quote, targeted and aimed at, quote, trying to get people to identify who I am to come after me. This is not true. Although it is true that Christina did use Lauren's name as a hashtag in the videos. 51, Lauren also alleges that I posted an emoji on a podcast she participated in to, quote, let people know I was watching. The podcast was live and open to public comments. As Lauren's declaration seems to acknowledge, I did not post the emoji to communicate specifically with Lauren, but to, quote, sign in and participate in the public chat. Although the emoji was the side-eye emoji, which is not really something people usually use to just check in and participate in the chat. As far as I could tell, Christina did not participate in any of the rest of the chat, but simply sent that side-eye emoji. That was just my observation. An image of the emoji is expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D8. As the Lauren declarations demonstrate, Lauren takes issue with any public post that I make about or related to her and any effort I make to investigate and or report on issues of public interest relating to Lauren. Some of my online content provides information about Lauren to the general public. My statements are not directed at Lauren, Grayson, or Lauren's family. That's false, because we know that Christina made a TikTok specifically about Lauren's brother. I believe that Lauren's goal is to quash my efforts to investigate and report truth and exercise my free speech rights under the First Amendment. For example, Lauren often makes claims regarding her husband's credentials as a psychologist and adjunct professor at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, or UNLV. However, I learned that UNLV has no record of Lauren's husband serving as an adjunct professor, which Lauren appears to acknowledge in her declaration. I created a video discussing this issue and posted it for public information. An incredibly ignorant video, in my opinion, in which Christina proves that she doesn't know what a PhD is. And in Lauren's live, she reads a statement from one of the faculty at UNLV stating that Dr. John is, in fact, an adjunct professor there, that he donates his time there, and that he's not, I guess, on the listed faculty. So that's why it would not be public information that he actually serves there. 56, I also believe that Lauren is attempting to prevent me from attending public events such as criminal proceedings and true crime conventions. In the singular, though, right? Just one true crime convention. 57, Lauren is attempting to use this action to further this goal. Through this action, Lauren had me removed from CrimeCon in Denver, Colorado on the weekend starting Friday, September 5th, 2025. And actually, the injunction was put in place specifically prohibiting Christina from even being at the convention. So knowing that, I'm not really sure why she would have went ahead and traveled to the convention in a knowing violation of this order. I purchased my ticket in June 2024 for approximately $1,800. Again, doesn't matter when you purchase the ticket. If there is an injunction against you, you don't go. 60, at the time I was regularly in communication and friends with Lauren. June of 2024, Is that a dispute? Lauren was aware I purchased a ticket and she had no plans to attend. That you were aware of. 61. As recently as June 2025, Lindsay overheard Grayson tell a friend that Lauren said that she did not have plans to attend CrimeCon. Now, this statement is complete hearsay. It would not be admissible in court. That Lindsay overheard Grayson tell a friend that Lauren said, so this is Grayson telling a friend something Lauren said, that she didn't have plans to attend CrimeCon. Well, never mind the fact that that's all hearsay, but it's all beside the point, because if you were enjoined from attending the event, you shouldn't have attended the event, regardless of whether the other person had plans to attend or not. It's in the court order. 62. Unbeknownst to me, Lauren changed her mind and attended CrimeCon, knowing that I would be in attendance with, I think this is Lindsay and Lori and perhaps Janice. Now, here's something I want to point out that probably a lot of people don't know. Lauren was invited to attend CrimeCon to go to the award ceremony that was honoring the families of Abby and Libby from the Delphi case. So the primary reason for Lauren and Grayson attending CrimeCon was to attend the Clue Awards. Now, I don't know when they were invited, at what the time frame was, but obviously they were concerned about attending enough to have it put in the injunction, which they obtained prior to the convention, which was served prior to the convention. So again, it doesn't really matter what Grayson told a friend that Lauren said. What matters is that Christina was not supposed to attend according to the injunction, and she went ahead and went anyway. 63. I later learned that Lauren announced her plans publicly on a live stream. A video of the announcement is expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D9. Lauren was not a speaker and did not have a booth at CrimeCon. She purchased a, quote, day pass, and CrimeCon was not a, quote, work event for Lauren, as she stated in her second declaration. Now, again, anyone could argue that CrimeCon would be a work event for Lauren because she is in the true crime space and it is a true crime convention. Lauren related to me that she doesn't get a booth there because it's far better publicity for her to walk around and talk to people in the crowd. And again, she was invited to attend the Clue Awards. And she, as I recall, did do a couple of live streams and made other videos while she was there. So she absolutely was working at the CrimeCon event. I don't have any evidence that Christina was working at the CrimeCon event, although she does say later in her declaration that she took a picture for Lindsay of Lindsay's employer. And I guess she's trying to claim that she is a photographer and that is her work. However, again, I just have to go back to the fact that she was served a stalking injunction. She was not supposed to be at CrimeCon. We'll talk about the bar scene later when it comes up in this declaration. I arrived in Denver for CrimeCon and checked into the hotel on September 3rd, 2025. On September 5th, 2025, I was headed to one of the CrimeCon panels and was approached by the police. By the way, she leaves out the fact that when she arrived at the convention, she alerted CrimeCon security about the injunction and told them that she was planning to attend the convention anyway. So left that one out. 67. The police gave me the temporary injunction and told to remain in the hotel and not attend any of the CrimeCon events. The police told me specifically where I could and could not go. The police explained to me that I was permitted to remain in the hotel and access all areas of the hotel, except that I was not allowed to go beyond the designated CrimeCon signage or into CrimeCon events. I asked about the hotel bar, and they told me that I could be there so long as it was not the CrimeCon convention and I was not approaching within 500 feet of Mathias. That's pretty clear cut. You were told. The audio of this conversation is expected to be offered in my defense as Exhibit D10. That night, I was in the hotel bar taking picture for Lindsay of her employer. Prior to arriving at the bar, one of my friends confirmed that Lauren was not in the bar. Okay, but it's also a really big bar. And it was very crowded all of the nights of CrimeCon. So is it possible that friend didn't see Lauren there? I think so. It's a huge area. So if you can imagine sort of like a courtyard type of an area that's surrounded by 4 different restaurants and another cafe and a coffee house, it's a huge bar area. So that entire bar area is surrounded by these different restaurants on the sides. So from the steps coming down into the bar area all the way to the exit of the bar area is a really huge area. And it definitely would have been easy to miss an individual person sitting in that area. After being in the bar for several hours, a friend notified me that Lauren had entered the bar. Well, I'm going to push back on that because I was in the bar from early in the evening. Lauren was there already when I arrived, and it wasn't until much later that we saw Christina in the bar area. So I don't know who was there first. Definitively, I can't say. I don't have the security camera footage. It's in dispute. But the bottom line is she was told not to be within 500 feet of Lauren. So immediately upon seeing Lauren, she should have left. And I can attest that that was not her behavior. She was looking over at Lauren and Grayson several times as she was taking these pictures of Lindsay's employer. So she knew very well how close she was to Lauren and Grayson. I immediately wrapped up what I was doing and left. I'm going to push back on the immediately because she was there for a pretty long time. She was there long enough for Grayson and I to go talk to security and come back. She was still there. It was a pretty long time. 73. I did not intentionally stand close to Lauren as Grayson alleged, or as, Lauren and Grayson, as Lauren alleged in the second declaration. Rather, they entered my space. That is not true. Lauren and Grayson were stationary, and Christina was the one who was moving around. On September 6, 2025, I was again in the bar at the hotel's restaurant when Lauren appeared because she, quote, wanted to come to the bar. She called the police and had me removed from the bar. I don't think that's accurate, but I don't know for sure, so I can't speak to the timing of all of that and how that all happened. During my conversation with the police, Lauren and Grayson walked right by us, which is inconsistent with her claim that she was afraid of me. Well, let's see. If I am afraid of somebody and I see the police talking to somebody, then I'm not worried that somebody is going to come over and do anything to me because the police are right there. So 76. In other words, after serving me an order that prevented me from being within 500 feet of her, Lauren purposely entered that space to force an encounter just as she had done the prior day. And to Lauren, I don't know what that redaction is there, just as she had done the prior day, and to blank following the cease and desist letter. Oh, to Lindsay. So again, the cease and desist letter doesn't prevent any kind of contact. And I don't think that Lauren purposely entered the bar space to force an encounter with Christina. That's not my recollection of the events at all. On September 7, 2025, I was having lunch in one of the hotel restaurants. I left with another individual, redacted, and walked across the center courtyard between restaurants. I saw Lauren and immediately left the area with redacted. At no point did I attempt to approach or communicate with Lauren. That seems like reasonable thing to me, to like, you see her and you walk the other way. That all seems reasonable. The same weekend as CrimeCon, I posted 3 videos that I had created long before, receiving the temporary injunction. Okay, just because you created them before you received the injunction doesn't mean it's okay to post them, because posting them is what you're enjoined against doing. So you just admitted that you posted 3 videos about Lauren with the injunction in place. Christina says, the videos are not posted to a, quote, targeted account, as Lauren claims, nor were they directed at Lauren, and were not threatening, defamatory, or harassing, in her opinion. But what's the legal definition? We have to hold it up against that. I did not believe the injunction restricted my ability to post public commentary, but the injunction did specifically say that you were not to post anything threatening, harassing, or defamatory. Again, we have to hold that up against the legal definition, not your opinion of whether or not that they were threatening, defamatory, or harassing. Lauren's alleged fear and emotional distress. Now, this is where I start to get a little upset about this whole thing, because none of us are able to accurately judge the fear and distress of another person unless we've witnessed them in baseline and then in fear and distress, unless we are a licensed mental health clinician. And even then, sometimes it can be difficult if you don't know the person's baseline. So arguably, has Christina been around Lauren when she was not distressed? Yes. Arguably, has she also been around Lauren when she was distressed? Possibly. But we'll get into it as we go. 82, I've never threatened or caused anyone to threaten Lauren, her husband, or her coworkers. During the time that I was friends with Lauren, I observed and learned many things about Lauren's mental and emotional health. I personally observed signs that Lauren was anxious, depressed, and otherwise mentally and emotionally unwell. Okay, anxious, depressed, those are clinical terms, so maybe use different language to describe what you observed. This leads me to question many of the statements Lauren makes regarding her mental and emotional health in the Lauren declarations, or at a minimum, the cause of the mental and emotional health problems. Similarly, the Grayson declaration claims that Grayson needed anxiety medication to manage the effects, quote, I was causing, when I know from personal interactions with Grayson that she's received mental health treatment, including medication, well before the issues alleged in the Grayson declaration. Again, I'm just going to push back against knowing about the mental health treatment, knowing about the medication. How much did you know? If I was an attorney, this would be something I would want to heavily question her on. 87, I did not cause, nor is it reasonable for Lauren and Grayson, I don't know, to claim that I caused any of the issues they allege simply by A, exercising my freedom of speech, and B, addressing the public about matters of public interest. Well, if all Christina was doing was exercising freedom of speech and addressing the public about matters of public interest, then I might be able to agree with this statement. However, based solely on the TikTok that was aimed at shaming Lauren for wanting to obtain the genetic material of her brother, based just on that one, that's not just freedom of speech. That's defamatory, because it is a lie. It's not true. And it is emotionally distressing, because you're targeting a brother who had recently passed away and who was beloved to the petitioner. So you're not just exercising freedom of speech there. And you're also not addressing the public about matters of public interest, because those were private conversations between Lauren and her family. And even if Christina had been told about them or was privy to them somehow, obviously she knew about them in some way, but that's not a matter of public interest. Sorry, it's just not. 88, I am not, quote, obsessed with Lauren, as she claims. I have simply responded when she's involved me or when she's made false or misleading public statements. I believe that Lauren is singularly fixated on preventing me from engaging in public discourse regarding any information about or even related to Lauren that Lauren deems hurtful or harmful. I don't know. I mean, making a TikTok account with 70 videos, 50 of which, at least 50 of them, are specifically about Lauren, that's a bit of an obsession, to be honest with you, in less than a 6-month period. 89, none of my public posts show Lauren's face, use her name, or encourage others to contact her. I express my opinion on matters of public concern and of interest to my subscribers, followers, and friends. Yeah, just because you don't show her face doesn't mean people don't know about it. And when I was listening to the court audio, it was very clear that Lindsay knew that that count was specifically referencing Lauren. And she did use Lauren's name. So number 89 is a blatant lie, because Christina did use Lauren's name in the hashtags on those videos. 90, Lauren and Grayson have both engaged in conduct towards me, Lindsay, Lori, Janice, and others that strongly contradict their testimony, such as reaching out to me by phone and taking purposeful steps to put herself in the same location and physical proximity with us. Arguably, Lauren is working at trials, etc., and It's debatable as to whether Christina was actually working at those trials or just attending as public. 91, Lauren's public posts also contradict her and Grayson's testimony that Lauren and Grayson have experienced fear or emotional distress. Again, what we post in public is not how we feel necessarily. For example, while the Lauren declaration state that she was incapacitated by fear for months, she was actively creating, publishing, and promoting content on podcasts and social media during that same period. Yeah, we all have to work and earn a living regardless of how we privately feel about things. And I, for one, can attest for pushing through working and being a mom for years on end while I was daily being emotionally abused and coercively controlled. So yeah, we put on that face. We do what we have to do. Doesn't mean that everything is okay on the inside. 93, Lauren has published live content over 100 times since April 9th, 2025. She has posted hundreds of pre-recorded videos and her podcast episodes during the same time period across various platforms she uses. Again, not an indictment of how she actually feels. On July 6, 2025, Lauren and her husband posted a hidden true crime podcast episode called, quote, Cults and Conformity, in which they discuss a variety of topics, including interpersonal relationships, the nature of cults and communities, family dynamics, conformity, cyberbullying, and AI regulation. Multiple times in the episode, Lauren mentions how she has always liked, quote, chaos, though not, quote, necessarily the kind of chaos that hurts people. I don't even know why we're referencing that. 96, Lauren also described how she does not like conformity, and for that reason, many people do not like her. Lauren's husband casually mentioned that their company had experienced, quote, growing pains due to negative interactions with the public. 97, the episode contains no indication that Lauren was afraid, distressed, or panicking, which directly contradicts Lauren and Grayson's testimony that they were unable to function in daily life and that this situation has persisted for 4 months. Again, I'm just going to push back on that because they were working. So no, they're not going to appear afraid, distressed, or panicked while they're recording an episode about an unrelated topic. Well, somewhat related, but also, again, not the same as an emotional live where you're sharing your innermost thoughts. It also 98. It also contradicts Lauren's testimony that Lauren's husband, a licensed psychologist, purportedly the very next morning, this is Grayson's testimony that Lauren's husband, a licensed psychologist, purportedly the very next morning confided in Grayson that Lauren was experiencing thoughts of self-harm and rocking in bed just hours after posting the episode. Yeah, because you know what? Holding inside all of those difficult emotions and not expressing them, if you don't express your emotions, they're going to come out sideways at some point. And when you hold it in for that long, you're going to experience some severe emotional fallout and distress from that. 99, around the same time, Lauren also appeared on an episode of the Mormon Stories podcast where she shared her thoughts and personal details about her life. Again, this contradicts Lauren and Grayson's testimony that she was living in fear and unable to function. How does appearing on a podcast contradict a narrative that you're living in fear? You're still going to go about your daily life as best you possibly can. And when you're a public figure, you're going to try and hide or minimize the negative emotions that you're feeling so that you can continue to work and function. And again, as I've stated several times in my videos, I know for a fact that Lauren's appearance on Mormon Stories, had been planned for a very long time. And, this just doesn't hold any water for me. 101. Instead, it illustrates how Lauren is using this proceeding to attempt to quash legitimate public discourse on topics and issues that she has spoken about in various media. More recently, on August 2nd, 2025, Lauren appeared on the Gossip, Rumor, and Innuendo podcast, where she announced she would attend CrimeCon and discuss numerous other topics. To date, the episode has over 12,000 views and approximately 250 comments. I don't see how that's relevant. Lauren is a podcaster. It's her job to appear on podcasts, so I don't see how that's relevant. So that's the end of the declaration. Under penalty of perjury, even though in my opinion she did lie several times in this declaration. Now, just because some of you have requested it, I'm going to read the cease and desist order. So this cease and desist letter was sent on April 11th of 2025 to Lindsay from the Pace Johnson Law Group. It says, I am writing to you on behalf of my clients, Lauren Matthias and Hidden True Crime, to formally demand that you immediately cease and desist from engaging in any further actions that defame Ms. Matthias or interfere with the business operations and relationships of Hidden True Crime. As such, please refrain from communicating directly with Ms. Matthias or Hidden True Crime or its affiliates. All correspondence must be sent to me. It has come to our attention that you've engaged and continue to engage in conduct that is damaging to Ms. Matthias's reputation and has negatively impacted Hidden True Crime's professional relationships. Specifically, you have allegedly communicated false and misleading information about Ms. Matthias and or Hidden True Crime to others within the crime media industry, including making claims about Ms. Matthias's personal and professional character that are untrue and damaging. 2, you've purportedly asserted that Ms. Matthias and Hidden True Crime have engaged in unethical business practices, which is false and harmful to Hidden True Crime and Ms. Matthias's reputation. 3, you've been reported to have reached out to various business contacts and or partners of Hidden True Crime with the intent to disparage Ms. Matthias and disrupt their business relationships. Your actions are not only harmful but legally actionable. Defamation involves the communication of a false statement to a third party, resulting in harm to another's reputation. Your communications and attempts to undermine Ms. Matthias and Hidden True Crime constitute such defamatory actions. Additionally, your interference with their business relationships is actionable under laws prohibiting tortious interference with economic relations. These claims afford the possibility of finding you liable for damages, both economic and non-economic. Complete compliance with this letter requires you to immediately cease and desist from making any further defamatory statements, both public and private, about Ms. Matthias or Hidden True Crime and its affiliates. Refrain from contacting any business partners or professional contacts of Hidden True Crime or Ms. Matthias with the intent to disparage my clients. Provide a written confirmation that you've received this letter and will comply with these demands. Failure to immediately comply with this demand will result in legal action, including but not limited to seeking damages for defamation and interference with business relationships, as well as any other remedies available under the law and in any relevant jurisdiction in which damaging statements have been sent or received. You are further required to preserve all evidence related to the facts and allegations of this letter and your actions. Attempts to destroy or delete relevant evidence may result in the imposition of severe sanctions against you in any subsequent legal proceedings. Evidence may include, without limitation, any data, social media posts, internet service provider history, emails, historical cloud server access, cellular carrier records, text messages, encrypted message apps, screenshots, video and voice recordings, emails, social media messages, and any other information, documents, or data relevant to the claims in this letter. Please be advised that this letter is written without prejudice to any other legal or equitable rights or remedies that my client may have against you. My client reserves the right to take any and all legal action necessary to protect her rights and interests, including seeking a monetary damages, injunctive relief, and attorney's fees and costs. This letter is not intended to be a complete statement of all the facts or claims pertaining to this matter, nor is it a waiver of my client's rights or remedies, whether legal or equitable, all of which are expressly reserved. I hope this matter can be resolved amicably and without further recourse to the legal system. However, please be advised that Ms. Matthias and Hidden True Crime are prepared to take all necessary legal actions to protect their rights and reputations and to deter further damage. You or your attorney may contact me regarding this matter to my attention at email address. Please confirm in writing that you've received this letter and will comply with the above demands. I look forward to your prompt attention to this serious matter. So again, the cease and desist does not prevent Lauren from talking to Lindsay or asking her if the seat next to her is available. In a small, crowded courtroom, when there weren't other seats available, perfectly reasonable for Lauren to ask, is it possible for me to sit here? The cease and desist was sent out as, usually those things are sent out as a preliminary to a defamation suit if the defamation continues. Clearly, it came to Lauren's attention that Lindsay was contacting people in the industry and telling falsehoods about Lauren's conduct and about the things that she had said and done. So here again, all of these people that have come speaking out saying, Lauren did this, Lauren did that, Lauren said this, Lauren said that, I'm still waiting for the receipts and the evidence of what she did and said, other than Gigi's statement that she made. And also, even though Gigi made that statement, I'm curious as to whether or not the things that Gigi was told that Lauren said were actually true, if Lauren actually said that or not. I've already seen a text message exchange that I think was taken out of context by certain people and then commented on how damaging and harmful that was. Now, I'm going to address first up here before I get to comments and things that happened on my live. A lot of people said that they were willing to believe Lauren until they saw Kresha's live, on which Kay came on and commented about her experience. My question is, or I believe that Kresha and Kay have a right to feel the way that they feel. I'm not trying to tell them not to be hurt or upset. I also believe that most likely this resentment has been building for a really long time, and this seemed like a good opportunity to air it. I don't agree with the way that it was done, but I'm not going to try to tell Kay and Kresha that they don't feel the way that they feel. However, what I do question is whether or not what Kay has been told about Lauren is actually true. Because I very, very strongly believe that there's at least one other person behind the scenes continuing this whisper campaign, saying things about Lauren that are not true. And just because Lindsay received a cease and desist doesn't mean she complied with it. Now, I'm just speculating here. I'm not trying to accuse Lindsay of anything, but I'm saying it's possible that Kay and Kresha and Gigi and others have been told things about Lauren that are not true. I'm still waiting for the receipts. Please email them to me at askmegan@gmail.com, Megan with 2 E's, ask MEEGAN @gmail.com. If I receive something that I feel is harmful, is hard proof that Lauren did and said some of these things that she's being accused of, I'll come out and say it. However, if it's true that Lauren did and said harmful things to or about people, that doesn't mean that she deserves to be harassed or bullied or threatened or defamed. If what she has done is truly that bad, then just tell the truth about her, and the truth will prove her character. But so far, I haven't seen any receipts or any proof that she has done something legitimately that has harmed the business of another person or that has defamed another person. Now, some people gave a lot of pushback with Lauren, saying that she compared herself to Charles and JJ and Tylee as a victim. What I recall her saying in her live was that she felt like Charles with her trying to tell the truth and get help and nobody believing her. She didn't compare herself to Charles in the way that she said she was a victim the same way that Charles was. Let's be real. And the only thing that I recall her saying about Tylee and JJ is that she felt as though she was labeled dark. She did not compare herself to Tylee and JJ being a victim in the same way that Tylee and JJ were victims. What I recall her saying is that she felt as though she was labeled dark. That's what I recall. If I'm wrong about that, I'm happy to be proved wrong. I'm happy to go back and rewatch, re-listen, and see if I might have taken that the wrong way. It was a 9-hour live. It was overnight. I was extremely ill. It's very possible I could have misheard or misremembered what I heard. So I'm open to that. A couple of the other comments that I starred over here. Caroline S. said, you can dislike Lauren and still see what's happening to her is wrong. I agree. Carolina Hurtado 6634 says, hello, Megan, I'm confused. So are you saying that it was okay the way Lauren did it on her 9-hour live stream, but when the victim's family members do it on a live stream, it's not? Absolutely, that's not what I'm saying. I would not have done a 9-hour live stream. That's not how I would have handled it. And Kresha and Kay are perfectly, of course, they can speak out and say how they feel. Again, I'm not disparaging how they feel, and I'm not trying to invalidate their experience. All I'm saying that is that it's very possible that they've been told things about Lauren that are not true, that they just take at face value without having proof. So I'm still waiting for receipts on that one. K. Graham 1752 asked, did she release the manuscript of Lori's book without permission? I don't believe so. What Lauren said is that the manuscript was sent to her. There's some debate about whether or not she, quote unquote, tricked Nate Eaton. I don't know the details of that, so I can't comment on it. But what I can say is that Lauren says she sent the book to her, the manuscript of the book to her fact checker and to Dr. John. As far as I know, that's all. As from what I understand, Lori Hellis is accusing her of sending out hundreds of copies. I don't think that happened. French Blue 8 says, not to be political, but this reflects the divided. It's people who abhor cruelty and those who revel in it. Doris Martin, again, is one of these people that is saying, Doris Martin 2434, I did not have an issue until she hit Kresha with a copyright infringement. It's what she is doing, free the 9-hour live, that I can't get on board with. So from my understanding, in her live stream, Kresha played a video that Lauren made for Kay for JJ's birthday or for the memorial service. I'm not clear on which. And if Kresha did play that video during her live stream, she should know that she's going to get a copyright strike for that. You know, it's very clear that if you're playing the content of someone else and you're not using it for fair use, then it's fair game for copyright strike. I did not watch Kresha's live I did not watch Kresha's live, so I can't comment on exactly why it was copyright struck, but it seems reasonable that if they played a video that wasn't for fair use, they could get a copyright strike. The other thing I've heard is that accidentally Lauren's phone number was shared on the screen, and accidentally that Kay said the name of Lauren's child. And so there were a number of problems with that video, but I don't think that the reason that it was struck was because Lauren didn't want their narrative out there. Lauren is about, as far as I have experienced, my experience with her has been, she's told people, don't cancel other people. She's told people, let them have their opinion, let them speak their mind, let them have their say, especially on their own channel. So again, I'm not here because Lauren asked me to come out here and defend her. I'm not trying to defend our actions that are harmful. I'm just saying that if there was a copyright strike, there was probably a reason for it. And, you know, those things have to go through a YouTube approval process also. So I just don't want to come out and make an assumption that Lauren gave Kresha a copyright strike just because she didn't like what Kresha was saying. That doesn't seem to jive with my experience with Lauren. KittyCat-S8V says, I think many people didn't actually watch the whole live and are reacting to sound bites, and I think that's very true. I think that's a lot of the discourse that's happening out here in the public space. I think a lot of people haven't consumed the content for themselves, but they're just repeating what they've heard other people say. China Clay says, did Megan say that the original order was given to the husband? Please tell me she was served in person. She was served in person. The police gave her a copy of that order at the CrimeCon convention. Okay, I got several comments from people saying that the judge disagreed, and that Lauren was the one who withdrew, and the reason she withdrew was because the judge disagreed with her and she wasn't going to get her way. Well, that's not an accurate representation of what the judge did. So this hearing happened after CrimeCon. They heard from 2 witnesses from the respondent's side of the table, but the petitioner did not get to present any evidence in that hearing at all. So they rescheduled it for October 16th. And the judge upheld the stalking injunction. He made some modifications to it, but the stalking injunction remained in place after this hearing was over. It was supposed to go to a full hearing on the 16th where the petitioner would have been able to present all of their evidence when the judge granted a request from Law and Crime to live stream the proceedings. Lauren's attorney objected to that, and the judge overruled the objection and was going to let it go ahead. And that's why Lauren pulled her case. That's why she dropped the case. It wasn't because she didn't believe she was going to win. It was because she didn't want her son's mental health information live streamed on Law and Crime. And contrary to what people have said, yes, she did mention some of his mental health information in the 9-hour live that she did, but she left out the majority of what was going to be reported on or what was going to be live streamed during the hearing. And yes, so I saw the part of Queen Bee's video where Joe Schmo was on. In my opinion, he was not really prepared for what was going to happen there, going on a panel while all of this was still really fresh. And in my opinion, they kind of railroaded him. They made some assumptions about the things that he said. They kind of put words in his mouth. And because he was caught off guard, I don't think that he articulately refuted what they said about him moving closer. Again, my recollection of the events was that Lauren and Grayson stayed put during that entire time. Grayson and I did go talk to security, but I believe Lauren stayed in the same place. Lauren and Grayson were not moving closer and closer to Christina in the bar. That's not what happened. So throughout my live last night, there was a particular commenter whose name I'm not going to mention in here who consistently was saying that I'm wasting my time. This is not my battle. Why am I defending Lauren, or why did Lauren send me here? Saying that I have much more important things to worry about, and just continued on that sort of repetitious path. And I'll just say, I've said this before, Lauren doesn't need me to defend her. I'm not here for that. I'm here because the truth matters, because as a victim of stalking, it matters to me that people understand what stalking is and why it's wrong. And I think what got me so fired up about this was, number one, people not believing Lauren, as I was not believed a lot of the time in my family. And number two, the fact that so many people could hear the same court hearing and come away with such different opinions, just because I think people hear what they want to hear and they're not really listening for facts. They're listening for confirmation bias. And so I came to try and correct the facts. And so what I said also a couple, times is that unless new information comes out, I'm probably not going to comment on this again, just because, I believe that hearing the court hearing and reading through these documents, I think this is all I can do right now. And I'm hopeful that Lauren's going to continue on and pursue the legal action. And I'm also hopeful that all of these people out here who are saying, oh, just wait, more's coming out, you're going to see. Well, we've been waiting. We've been waiting since she did her live, and so far I haven't seen anything. So unless more comes out, unless there is some kind of new information to report on, I'm not going to be commenting on this again. But just for the people who say, that I've got better things to do, well, it matters to me for a reason. So Nina Jasmine 2219 says, the thing that gets me is that this girl was putting money on Lori's card, sending glad tidings, etc. Seemed to me she might be the one helping Lori write a book. Something to think about. I don't know if Lauren did at any time put money on Lori's books. I think she did say she put money on Lori's books early on to try and get Lori to talk to her. Lori didn't talk to her, and I think she stopped doing that. I can definitely attest to you. Lauren is not helping Lori Daybell write a book. So that's not a thing. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it for the comments and questions that I had starred for my live stream the other night. If you still have questions for me that you'd like me to answer, I'm happy to answer them. Please leave them in the comments below and or send me an email if you like at askmegan@gmail.com. I think the other point that I want to address is a lot of people saying that I've been duped and saying that I have, you know, it's the hidden true cult, that I've drunk the Kool-Aid or that I've been fooled by Lauren. All I can tell you is that being surrounded by narcissists for my entire life, I am allergic to narcissistic behavior. It sets off warning bells in my head. And all I can tell you is that Lauren is not a perfect person, but I don't think she's a narcissist. And I don't think that she has done half of the things that she's been accused of. Now, do I know everything? No. Is it possible for me to be duped? Yes, obviously. But in this situation, I just look at all sides of it and I think that more than one thing can be true. It can be true that Lauren has not acted perfectly and also that she does not deserve this treatment. This case, this is one of those situations where black and white thinking is just not helpful. It's not okay to say that because Lauren said unkind things about somebody that she deserves to be harassed and bullied and defamed. Just isn't okay. The behavior's not okay. And frankly, it scares me a little bit that there are so many people that think that what Christina did was not stalking and that what Christina did was not harming Lauren. That's what kind of scares me the most, is because you're telling me that if you don't think that what Christina did was wrong, that kind of behavior is okay. And that frankly does scare me. And that's why I've been talking about it, because I'm hoping that people will become educated about what stalking is and what cyberbullying is and how damaging and threatening it is. I'm not out here trying to get people to just agree with me blindly, because I think that's also harmful. But what I hope that people will do is at least examine their own biases and examine the reasons why you're so committed to whatever side you're on. Even if it is that you agree that Lauren was stalked, examine that. Is that a bias? Or am I able to also see that there's a wide variety of information out here to consume? So I, for one, don't ever want to just take somebody's word for it. You know, when people were telling me what Kresha's live was about last night, that's why I don't really feel comfortable commenting on it a lot, because I didn't watch it and I don't know exactly what was said. I'm just being told this information, and the people that I receive the information from are people that I trust, but they could be wrong too. And so I just think it's always important for us to examine the fact that we could be wrong, and I still could be wrong, but I'm waiting for those receipts to come out like people have been promising us for so long. So when and if they do come out, I'll have something more to say. But until then, I hope that you'll be kind to each other and to yourself.